All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of The Urban Gardener. I want to thank you all so much for joining me here today on what's going to be a really great special feature. If you haven't already, though, please hit that subscribe button down below. Follow along with more garden adventures as we continue growing here on The Urban Gardener. So, all right, I know you've all seen the length of this video. It is really, really long, but you know what? There's a good reason for that, and I hope you all stick around to check it all out. This isn't going to be the normal Urban Gardener episode. We are not going to be doing any time lapses. We're not going to take any close-ups of any of our plants or do any musical interludes or anything. This special feature is just basically going to be a video that was shot during a live radio program that I got to do when I was down in Los Angeles recently. Now, Nick Federoff of thingsgreen.com had invited me to take part in his radio program while I was down there to do interviews with him and some other YouTubers. Now, one of those YouTubers, I'm going to put a link right up here in iCard to the very last episode that we just put out. We did an interview with Kaye Kittrell of Late Bloomer Urban Organic Gardening Show. Now, she was really nice enough to allow us to come over and check out her gardens and take part in her Thursday work day video. So I'm going to put a link down below right now to the video there and a link to Kaye's channel as well. Kaye was really kind enough to come along with me to Nick's radio show, and I've never done anything like that before, so it was really, really nice to have Kaye along, to have another YouTuber there to be able to take in questions and talk and discuss all these different garden subjects that we got to do with Nick. It was just a really, really great time. I really hope that you all enjoy this video and stick along through it. Like I said, it's long, but we talk about a lot of really great garden subjects. We get to talk about some really different things that you might agree with or not agree with, so I hope that you check out some of that stuff. And if you have any comments or anything, no, remember, this isn't our normal episode, so we're not going to be doing the ending or anything like that. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns at all, please, hit us up in the comment section down below, because I'd love to hear from you. And maybe you have a question for Nick or something like that. I'll tell him to come check out the comment section if there's any questions for him at all too. If not, go check him out too. There'll be links down in the description as well to Nick's radio program, thingsgreen.com, and all of that. Go check that out. Nick's just a great, great garden personality. He does a great, great show, and it was really fun to sit with him and talk all sorts of gardening. And again, thanks to Kaye for coming along with me. I hope that you all sit back and enjoy this nice program and special feature of the Urban Gardener. And remember, hit the like button. And real quick, just a side note about the video. It is just a video that was shot of a live radio program. I've edited out a lot of the commercials and everything, but there's a couple of times when we come back from what would be a commercial break that the video angle is off slightly. So just give it a moment or two and the video will go back to normal frame. And I hope you all enjoy.
Tony, welcome to the program. How you doing?
Hey, Nick, how you doing?
Fantastic. What's going on?
It sure sounds like it. Boy, I was in a bummer mood till I started listening to you, so thanks for that, because I'm on my way into work.
I love your show. I think it's fantastic. I have kids, and we just sit around the breakfast table and listen to you every Saturday morning. I even gave up my other radio, which I won't mention. It's another station. I don't think you're familiar with it, but I gave it up, and I really love that one, but I love you more. Don't tell them over there, because I'm pretty dedicated.
You have converted us to gardening. I have to tell you that very honestly. And we really enjoy listening to the program, and that's why I'm calling right now.
Federoff on gardening. Thank you very much for tuning into this hour of the program where we talk about gardening, landscaping. I help you out with all of your indoor and outdoor living ideas. I want you to hold off on calling me right now because I have a couple of very special in-studio guests. And who let you people in? That's what I want to know. Enoch, how you doing, man?
Doing well.
Good.
Nick.
Now,
Thanks for having me.
Okay, this is not like the blogs and vlogs that you do. You got to speak into this big old black thing. Yeah, keep it as close as possible.
All
And
right.
don't mind all the dripping stuff that's on there, okay?
Okay, all of that
and that
stuff.
goes the same for you too, Kay, all right?
Right.
Well, welcome to the thingsgreen.com Botanical Gardens. I have been looking forward to this. This guy over here, he kind of set this thing up months ago, it seems like, and I'm glad that you... Yeah, it's glad to still have to talk into the microphone.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. He doesn't do that, Pam. You know what are you gonna do? Is he sounding all right though? All right, as long as he's sounding all right, that's all that matters. Okay, so I just went and I made a post because we let our Facebook fans know what's going on. So I said, sit back and listen. I have no idea what we're going to be talking about. Who are these people in the studio? Somebody called the police. Okay, here we got one of my Facebook peeps. His name is Ernie, and he is a policeman.
Okay.
So the police are here.
The police
Okay,
are
good.
here already. Okay.
Hey,
Hi, Ernie.
You want to know something? This actually happened. This was a number of years ago. This is also the studios for adrenalineradio.com and adviceradio.com. And one day we had one of our talk show hosts had people all lined up over here, and they were having a really good time, good talk. There was a guest that was sitting right in your chair over here, buddy. There was just a really good time that was happening. Well, one of my guys happened to be out in his car. He had a little VW and he's in his car, and he had his girlfriend with him, and they had just pulled up just to come up here see what was going on. So while they're sitting in the car, they were probably making out. A guy comes walking up to the window and pulls a gun out on him. Pulls a gun out on him. Okay, so after they soiled themselves, they're like, what is going on over here? Well, what happened was that he was an undercover cop. He had called the police, and the police were starting to come down the street. He said, what do you know about this place, and where's the studio at? So he says, look, I just work here. I got a key to the place. So he says, you have to go this. And you came here. It's like a maze getting in here, right?
A bit of a maze.
Yes, it is a maze.
Yeah. So he went like this. Cops came up. They had all their stuff pulled out. They were on it over here. They nailed the guy that was on the chair. They picked him up. I think they threw him on the floor right here, if I'm not mistaken. Cuffed him, took him out. Happened in seconds. They were so fast.
Wow.
What it was is that somebody from Ohio was watching and listening to the program, and they recognized him as somebody who had robbed a store in Ohio.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
he was wanted. Had a rap sheet this long.
Oh, my.
Nicest guy. I met him a couple of times. He was a sweetheart of a guy.
Oh, my. This isn't being broadcast in Washington State, is it? No, just kidding.
Actually,
Just
it
kidding.
is. KGMI
Just
in
kidding.
Seattle carries us, man. Anyway, just want to
Well-
let you know we're being well protected here today.
Excellent.
I'm thrilled to know it, and it's my first trip to Whittier, so hearing a story like that is kind of...
The Things Green Botanical Gardens are everywhere.
They are.
They're
They
everywhere.
You are
definitely
everywhere.
I try to be.
He is everywhere, and I'll just tell you this. The reason why I know about Nick Federoff is by way of Ireland. I have a Facebook friend named Bill over in Ireland,
Isn't he a character?
So do I.
and he was the
He's my
one.
friend, too.
He's been on my TV show.
Yes,
I'm not
and he
surprised.
was the one who was sharing the live feeds of your broadcasts here that I started watching
In
a
fact,
couple of years
I saw
ago.
that. I think I saw that.
That Bill is just a
So
character.
Things
I
Green
know.
is everywhere.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, Bill is just a character. We have a great following from Ireland. We're also everywhere in the UK. In fact, I actually figured out how to do the math over there now and how to
Oh.
do that. Yeah. So right now they're actually 8 hours ahead of us right now.
8
Right.
hours.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're kind of chiming in on their
Let's
afternoon
see.
dinner.
Right,
Yes,
right.
we're right at afternoon dinner time.
Well, we'll just say hello to Bill in case he's watching. Or
Oh,
listening.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. In fact, I sent them a message just today.
Did you?
Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah.
Excellent.
What a character that guy.
He
Yeah.
is so funny. He is
Yeah.
so funny.
Yeah,
I
too
really
funny
go-
there. And then, of course, and excuse me for a second. What we're talking about here is that there is a Facebook page, and if you come to my Facebook site, you'll see it. And Enoch, I think yours is you post on there.
I
You would
posted
post
on
it
my
there.
page as well. Yes.
Okay, and that's Gardening Today. And if you go to Gardening Today, I happen to be one of the administrators to the page.
So do I.
So yeah, so we could
So
see.
am I should say.
Yeah, so we can see you can see different things that are going on.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
and,
Right.
and it's a really great
Huge group.
community.
Yes.
Just a
Yes.
wonderful community. Everybody's so nice to each other.
I know.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the one thing I really, really love about gardening on social media
Right.
is
People
that
are
the
nice.
community is really nice. Hardly any confrontations at all.
Well,
Is
you
what you
know-
would find on Facebook and other places.
yeah,
you know,
it's
so it's
interesting.
really a comfortable place to be on Facebook when you're in gardening groups.
You know, and it's interesting that you mentioned that because I have gardening in my veins. I've been doing this forever, as some of us in
Now,
the
see,
room.
I'm a late bloomer.
But and you have to listen to what she just said because that's a very pivotal point that she just made. The late bloomer thing. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But what's really interesting about what you say, being that I've been immersed in it my whole life, the people are fascinating people. Whether it's on a trade level or whether landscapers, agronomists, scientists, all the way down to the Mrs. Jones, people who do gardening, I've always found out to be really nice.
Right.
They're genuine people.
They actually
Genuine
care about
people.
the environment and the bees and the pollinators and
All kinds of crazy stuff.
yeah, all kinds of crazy
yeah.
stuff.
I mean, we're not all kumbaya, I'm going to hug a tree kind of thing.
Right.
But the point is that they're nice people.
I did a
and-
video hugging a tree last year.
Oh, did you?
Well, that wasn't the whole video.
It is a family show.
That was
okay?
the bonus shot at the end.
Okay, so number one, you've got yourself a YouTube channel. What's it called?
My YouTube channel is called The Urban Gardener.
The Urban Gardener. Okay.
And
Now you don't have any formal training either.
I have no formal training in gardening at all. Nothing at all. And that's basically kind of what, we learn on my channel as you go along with things is that I'm on a garden adventure, as I say, so I'm learning. I'm developing my garden skills and all of that along the way with my channel. So as you're watching episodes of my channel videos, you'll be seeing that, I'm progressing in the sort of things that I'm learning as I'm finding new tricks and new different things that there are out there for me and all the different types of gardening skills and things that are out there. So I'm just trying to show those things on my channel and be able to take people along with me.
Well, that's a really important thing to. No, you're good. That's really an important thing to share with people because you're not coming off as I'm some kind of pompous Nick Federoff that knows everything.
Right. Yeah, I tell people that
besides
I'm.
the fact I
You
do
do
have
it
a
with a
degree.
smile on
I
your
have a
face,
degree
though.
in ornamental horticulture here, but that's besides the point. All right.
Ornamental, all right. Ornamental.
I do think that it does really help that you have the knowledge to go along with what you're doing, and projecting that sort of thing. And as I do with mine, I'm not a garden teacher.
And that's actually
Well-
why I was drawn to Bill's page originally. It wasn't originally called Gardening Today.
No, he changed it. It was Gardening Worldwide.
Something like
Before
that.
that.
Yeah, because he was actually in the same position as both of you guys that were actually. All of a sudden one day, hey, I'm going to do something. I like this.
Yeah.
And then
Well-
before you know it, you're gardening.
Over there, it seems like in England and Ireland, they have allotment gardening, and they have allotment gardening, and it's something that we don't have here in the States. So it sort of binds them all together.
It's a different passion.
It's a different
totally
passion.
different passion. Okay,
Yeah.
listen, we're hanging out with some pals of mine, and I want you to get your pens and papers out because we're going to give their YouTube channels out, their website addresses. We're going to promote these people like crazy here, so they're loving the end of that. You're listening to Nick Federoff on Gardening. We'll be back right after this. Oh, you know what? I walked out for a second. The music's playing. You think you guys would have started the show without me?
You should have.
Yeah, I know.
Trying to
We're
take
taking
a
over.
selfie.
Gee whiz. Hey,
taking
welcome back,
over.
everybody. This is Nick Federoff, and we are talking gardening over here and being introduced to a couple of pals of mine, Facebook friends and media personnel. We now have Kaye Kittrell with us, and she is with the Late Bloomer Show, and that's kind of a play on words, isn't there?
I know. Well, the reason I have show on there is because when I first started my videos in 2012, there were no shows on gardening on YouTube. So I thought, well, I want to distinguish myself. And of course, late bloomer is because I am a late bloomer myself. I only started gardening, well, it's been now 6.5 years ago. And so, shall I tell you the story that I mentioned before about having to look up the
Well, nobody else heard it.
the term perennial? Because I
Yes,
wasn't
please.
sure if that meant, what did that actually mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, so I really started from scratch. And the most I'd ever done was a little pruning. I'd never grown any seeds or anything. So it's been a real adventure.
Well, you know, that's really interesting because this show here, I have always catered to the beginning gardener. In fact, one of our trademark lines are information and ideas for the beginning and seasoned gardener.
Right.
And it's really important because there are beginning gardeners out there. There are young people or there are late bloomers
Right.
that are just have
Both.
no idea what they're doing. And I have seen one of my biggest pet peeves is when I go to one of those big box stores and I go
Oh.
into the garden section, and though they may be well-minded, the people who work there, they don't know what they're talking about.
No.
And I actually heard this one day. There was a lady that was trying to buy some bulbs, and the person that was next to them had great information and gave whatever they knew. And then when the dude left, I come up to this lady and I said, "Look, I don't mean to undermine what he said, but if you follow those directions, those are going to bloom in China in about 5,000 years because
Right.
he told you to plant the bulbs upside down."
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, and that's one of the problems. Now, one of the big chain box stores, they tried something a number of years ago where they actually
Hired professionals.
hired professionals and certified landscape or agricultural technicians, whatever you want to call them.
Mhm.
And that was short-lived.
Right.
They stopped doing that. And why they stopped doing that? Because they couldn't pay them enough money. That's why.
Exactly.
You know, that's what
Exactly.
happens. So to know what a perennial is, as in I talk about over here, and you know, and you have to understand, and as you guys are learning, gardening is and can be confusing.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Okay.
And when I started,
Very
I
confusing.
started with what I called my very first video that I ever shot was about cauliflower. And I had bought some starts at the nursery. And I
you mean
called
sets.
sets. Are they?
Are they sets for
I
cauliflower?
thought they called them
They could
starts. Sets. I had bought a set.
This is the confusing part about it.
Exactly,
I had-
right?
I had a set of 6 of them. And
So did you buy a 6-pack or did you buy a pony pack?
I bought a 6-pack.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
You're
and
throwing in them words.
in my video, I called it. I just came up with this. I thought it was very clever. I called it a one-shot vegetable because you can plant a tomato seed and wind up, if you're lucky, with 100 pounds of tomatoes, or more like 20 or 30 pounds. But I had a 100-pound one last year almost. It was absolutely insane. But for cauliflower or broccoli, or you get one. Well, broccoli, you can get more than one spear, but for cabbage, you get one cabbage. For cauliflower, you get one cauliflower. So I call them one-shot vegetables. And I said, it's more economical, obviously, to start from seed. But I didn't know anything about that back then, so that's the way I started. And I think most beginners do.
And I think that's one of the wonderful things about gardening. There is so many trials and errors that could happen.
Right.
And nobody well, all right, I'll laugh. But for the most part, nobody laughs at you. They
No.
laugh with you
Right.
Yes.
based on whatever had had happened.
Well, a biodynamic farmer who inspired me to start my garden, he told me to buy 2 citrus trees and surround them with herbs. And once I did that, I was off to the races. I was absolutely hooked. And I took out my grass and bushes. And even though I have a very small front yard, it's incredible the difference between when it started. You've probably seen all my videos, Enoch.
I've seen
so
most
you know,
of the videos. You're very economical
when
with
I
your
started
space, that's
out,
for sure.
it was just like nothing. There was a few little annuals, and now it's just this jungle. You know,
There was a study that I read recently that talked about the sickness behind gardening.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Were you their main subject?
That's probably me.
No, but that actually happens. People, they get that bug, and oddly enough, because when the economy tanked was about 4, 5, 6 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
That's when gardening is the number 1 hobby in America. Period.
Right.
And because because it tanked, people started doing more gardening because they didn't have enough money.
Yeah.
Well, I was just in Kentucky, and I do trips around, and I usually connect with one of my fans, and then I go to the area, and then I visit other gardens when I'm there. And I was just in Ashland, Kentucky this past summer, July, and interviewed the county, the Ashland, what do you call it, the county extension office agent. And she was saying the same thing, you know, because Ashland really got hard hit, their economy. And she saw that's really when she started getting a lot more calls from people wanting to start gardening that wanted to grow their own food because the economy was so bad.
Yeah, you mentioned the ag department there,
right?
You know, usually the extension offices they're master gardeners.
Absolutely.
Now, where we come from, not where you come from, where we come from, we have actually one of the weakest master gardening programs that there are. It's actually pretty pathetic. And I decided 32 years ago, or 30 years ago, there much, that I was going to take the program. So I took the program, and I got interviewed by a whole bunch of people, and they couldn't understand why I wanted to take it.
Take it on? You mean take on the program?
To take the program, to go through the course.
Oh, just to take it for yourself.
Yeah, just to take it.
I see.
I wanted to find out what it was about, because what a pompous name where we come from to call yourself a master gardener. Little did I know when I told this story, almost like I'm telling it right now, back in those days, back then, I never received so much hate mail in my life because I did not understand that outside of our little nucleus over here, master gardeners are real people that are reverend. And they are saluted, they are bowed down to, they have information, and they're just absolutely amazing people.
Absolutely. And not only is it the knowledge that they have, but the whole donating your time
on top of that
to help other people is
pretty
part of the program.
All right, hey, listen, you're listening to Nick Federoff on gardening. We've got more information and ideas for the beginning and season gardener coming up. We are visiting with the urban gardener dude from YouTube, and we've got the late bloomer show gal with us, and that's we'll be back right after this. Don't go anywhere. We are back. And you were talking before me. Wow, that's nice. I should have left the room and had you guys carry on.
We're taking over.
That's all right. Please do. I'll tell you.
Oh.
Yeah, I was. In fact, I mentioned this. I think it was last week on last week's show. I've been telling everybody that this was my 30-year anniversary. It's actually my 32nd anniversary.
Who's counting?
You know, and it's like, I lost 2 years. I wanted to have a big old party.
Oh Oh, wow.
so much for
Nick,
that.
you seem like every day's a party.
Well, thank you
seem
very
like that
much.
kind of guy.
Yeah, I do. I try to live life to the fullest. But we were talking off the air. For those of you that are watching us on Facebook, you'll see hands flailing and strangling going around. And I told you couldn't use those pair of shears to cut my beard off.
I thought I could bring my tools. You know what I mean?
But you mentioned something interesting, being that you're in southern Portland area. Right?
Southern Oregon, yeah.
Southern Oregon. I'm sorry, Southern Oregon area. You mentioned something interesting because I started mouthing off about the Master Gardeners program, and then you said something pretty interesting where you said things kind of have shifted in the environmentally speaking.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, as I was saying, one of the things with the Master Gardener program that I was looking into our area's program. I got one of the manuals and started looking through a lot of the information because I really wanted specific information for my area. And I started planting my first couple of seasons based on some of the first frost date and all of that sort of stuff. And what I had found through my season was that I was late. My plants weren't getting enough time growing in and everything. I wasn't putting them in the time that they were supposed to be put in or would prefer to be put in order to get the outcome that I was looking for. And that really kind of comes in with that information. Our last frost date isn't really that last frost date anymore. It may have been 10, 15 years ago as they were developing that information. But as we're gardening and we're doing things now, things are just you got to see.
It's shifting.
It's shifting.
And it's shifting all over the country, and people say that, they write to me and they say that too. And of course I saw that in Kentucky where their whole planting times and harvesting times and the temperatures and the frosts. In fact, they're having more serious bugs that aren't getting killed off by frosts in Kentucky than they ever have.
Yeah, we definitely have seen a weather shift and a weather pattern shift. A lot of this information actually comes from the USDA map. Now, the USDA map is cute.
Yeah.
It's colorful.
It is.
But we should never use it as a guideline.
Right.
Let's put it this way. It's not a religion. All right. If you want a general guideline and you want to know, is it going to be cold in Southern Oregon? Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's going to be cold, but they cannot pinpoint it. That's why it's really important. One of the banners that I carry around over here is that we have to garden based on microenvironments. Because what's happening in your yard and what's happening in your yard and my yard is always different. Best way to do this is this.
Just takes a tree to change that.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I was just going to say that.
Absolutely right. Do this. If you got to do this early in the morning so you don't get arrested. You get up early. You get up in the early in the morning, and then you go to the back of your property and mist your arm with some water, your arms, and just put them out like you're going to be flying, and walk the distance of your property and pay attention to every step, and you'll feel that sometimes with every step you'll feel cold, and then it'll warm up, and then it'll be cold again. Those are microenvironments that actually stay with you all the time.
Right.
They're little mini jet streams.
I was just in Phoenix this past weekend, and
Don't you ever stay home?
She is all over the place. That's what makes watching her show so fun. She's out there visiting and taking the time to do that.
And if anybody knows about microclimates, it's the people in the valley. There's a huge food movement there, and everybody is very, very aware that you have to create these cooler microclimates if you want to grow food in the valley, the desert valley.
Yeah, exactly. And to be cognizant of what's going on, then you could do that. Then you could put but it's trial and error.
Trial and error. But I do want to say though is that the dates, the hard dates, as I was talking about with these, your first frost date, it's a give and take, absolutely, any year. But anymore, that last frost date is or first frost date. I mean, last frost date, even so, but it's further than what you would expect. Right. In my opinion, as I've noticed over my years of gardening, from when I first started gardening, utilizing that information, and now I'm planting a month earlier. Yeah. You would think first frost day varies within a week, 2 weeks. I'm going to get started at this point in time. I'm planting a month beforehand now.
Well, our seasons have switched.
Right.
All over the country, they have switched.
Well, I'm in a year-round garden, and you'll find that out if you go to my
Go
YouTube
ahead, do it,
channel,
do
which
it.
is Late
it.
Bloomer Urban Organic Garden Show, Kaye Kittrell on YouTube, and Late Bloomer Show on Twitter and Instagram. And what I find is, it's not so much because I don't have a frost date, so I can't measure anything by that. It doesn't get that cold. But what I'm finding is we will kind of go along with cool weather, and then we'll have a day that's 90 or a day that's 100.
Yeah.
And so that's the craziness that I'm experiencing.
Yeah, I get the same thing in Southern Oregon as well, too. We get a really, really intense heat during the summertime, so I see the same thing with that.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of what we do over here. And
Well, it keeps you guessing, and
it keeps you guessing.
It keeps you on your toes.
Well, it's nice to have a weather rock outside.
Yeah.
Because that's really important to have.
I need one. Where do you get a weather rock?
Oh, I could sell you one. I've got one. It's vintage.
I'll
Vintage.
buy you.
Oh
I'll
yeah,
buy it.
It was. Let me tell you, it goes back a long way. It has a real good history at it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's broken a few windows.
Okay.
But when you do have the weather rock mentality, look, everybody has one of these things. I mean, the second a commercial comes on, every one of us are on our phones doing something, and et cetera, et cetera. Look at the weather. What's the weather like going to be tomorrow?
Right.
We're going to find out that it is different than the maps that you're looking at.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. So paying attention to that, turn your television on, see what kind of weather the weather lady or weather dude is doing, and then you could figure out whether you're supposed to protect your plants that night or not. So with that, we're going to go for a quick little break. More information and ideas for the beginning and season gardener as we are chatting up gardening today. This is so nice. I'm enjoying this. We'll be back right after this. Okay, we're back over here, and Kaye is about to strangle me because she just heard something about me that she didn't quite like.
Oh, we're about to get controversial now.
I didn't say a word.
Okay,
I might have had a look on my face, but I didn't say anything.
All right. So we're talking about pesticides, we're talking about insecticides, herbicides, we're talking about all the sides, everything but genocide. And what what it was here is that I used to, because I was in the landscaping business,
Right.
I used to have my license as a qualified applicator. That allowed me to operate, handle, touch, feel, do whatever I wanted to, and to apply toxic chemicals. Point blank, that's what that's for. It has nothing to do with organic. And I got the license intentionally, very intentionally, because you're probably looking at the only, if not one of the very few garden communicators in the United States that has actual hands-on experience as well as knowledge what it takes to handle chemicals. Most people don't have that. And that's the and that go ahead.
I was going to say that's the problem, because it's the average person walking into the garden store that really doesn't know what they're doing.
Right.
And the professionals obviously do.
Yeah. Now, the problem that you have with the guy that's in my position is that sometimes they get caught up in the fact that, oh, I've got my chemical license, blah, blah. Now, I have to, for all fairness over here, disclosure, I have chosen many years ago to not renew my license because they just wanted money from me, and I just the heck with that. I'm not going to do that anymore. Plus, I wasn't in the business any longer, so what's the big deal? But the thing of it is that there are people who think that they don't think outside the box. They think just the chemical aspect is right. Well, a good thing had happened in the world of chemicals, and a bad thing had happened. And what happened is that a number of years ago, there was a product that was called Dursban. You guys don't know about Dursban, because by the time you guys weren't a part of it, because you're a late bloomer. You see how I did that?
Yes.
Oh, that was good. The Late Bloomer Show.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thanks for
.com.
throwing that in there.
Way to bring it back.
And then we have the urban garden dude over here. I mean, come on. Okay, so we have, you guys got into the game late, but about 25, maybe 30 years ago, Dursban was the only chemical on the market that was tested on human beings.
Ooh.
It was absolutely the most safest chemical you could ever imagine. Well, the EPA took it off the market. And they took it off the market because if you could take the easiest chemical off the market, it's a lot easier to take the harder chemicals off the market, like malathion. You ever work with malathion? You've never even heard of malathion.
No.
Oh, I have.
Malathion was a staple. You're old enough to remember when we
Excuse me?
You're almost old enough to remember when we had aerial spraying.
Oh,
remember the aerial
no,
spraying?
I do remember.
They had that was malathion that they encapsulated in a. This is the trip, dude. All right, we had helicopters, and it sounded like
It's
a war
hard to
zone.
believe, but yes.
Yeah,
Really?
They had helicopters that they filled up with this malathion and a syrupy solution to control the Mediterranean fruit fly.
And don't tell me
it was an
they
aerial
sprayed
drop.
a drop on
Aerial drop
Oh
On everything.
my!
on everything, not just once but several times.
Mhm.
And they did it, of course, area by area where the Mediterranean fruit fly was the worst.
Yeah, you remember the
Right.
scene in North by Northwest when the crop duster comes chasing?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the way it was.
Oh
yeah.
my! I couldn't imagine
Oh, it's
that.
a trip, man. You wake up in the morning and your car is sticky.
Yeah.
You could see the droplets on your windows. You know, you're like, what is this? Is this the 1940s?
Did they at least give you like one of those air raid siren type things? Let everybody know, hey,
it was
get
called-
inside. It's just the yeah. I guess that would be a good
It was a
enough
total
warning,
trip,
right?
absolute total trip. Now, most people were talking out of their mouth. They didn't understand the concept behind that and the reasons behind that. Malathion in the doses that they were doing didn't hurt anybody. Nobody died from it, but it made it really uncomfortable. Of course, since then, technology has changed,
And
they're
the
able
chemicals
to
are stronger.
and they've been able to figure. No, they were able to figure stuff out.
Yeah.
And to bring in the sterile Mediterranean fruit flies, which is a story in itself on how they're sterilizing. The scissors are so tiny.
It's
you know, they
incredible.
snip no. All right.
Wow.
So anyway, yeah, so these are all the things that you guys have really missed.
Yeah.
You know, in this world of gardening. Okay, so it's really not as bad as you think about it. Now, this whole Roundup thing, it's another thing that it's 6 one way, half a dozen the other. This whole banter is what I'm trying to bring up. Which would say is this: is that there's a good side and there's a bad side to everything. One of the neat things that I've seen, because they've taken things off like Dursban, it has forced the world's largest chemical companies to do alternative things. And those alternative things are in the form of natural or organic, because natural and organic is not the same. They're two different, very different
Yes.
things. So anyway, so you have that. So you have the two different things that are going on, but it's a gooder thing. It's
gooder
much. It is much gooder, and we're getting better at it, because we have to also understand that if it wasn't for chemicals, we would still have malaria today.
Well, I also think, doesn't it kind of come back to what Kay was saying there too, or you were talking about, is having the knowledge of using these sort of things. You go into your big box garden center store, you know, at the beginning of spring, and the most of it is Roundup, aisles and aisles of Roundup for the person, individual, to go and pick up off of the shelf and go and do what they think they need to do with it, versus maybe having someone who is a professional come in and take care of those things.
And there's reasons behind that as well, and that's and what. Oh man, I can go for days with these guys. We gotta go for a break. We'll be back right after this. All right, I am totally finding out that I have two very passionate gardeners in front of me. Before we leave the show, I want you to give your names, contact information, blood type, serial numbers, and all that, or just your YouTube channels.
Excellent.
Good.
My YouTube channel?
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. YouTube channel is www.youtube.com/c/theurbangardener.
Just that
easy.
simple. The
Just
Urban
that easy.
Gardener.
Yep.
Do you wear that snazzy hat on the show too?
Every episode.
No way.
I have many different
That is
ones.
so cool.
I have many different ones.
That's right. You know, I'm gonna have to get one for you that says "Things Green" on it.
That would be
And,
great.
could
I
do
would.
that for
I
you,
would
yeah.
wear it.
All right. Okay.
My website is www.latebloomershow.com, and I'm at Late Bloomer Show on Instagram and Twitter, and my YouTube channel is Kaye Kittrell. Late Bloomer Urban Organic Garden Show. I know, it's a big one. Trying to cover all the bases there.
Well,
A great channel, though.
I
A great
appreciate
channel.
you guys joining me for this hour of the program. I've been having a lot of fun. Obviously,
I appreciate you having us here. This is great.
I got to tell you
Thank
this
you.
much right now. I am just having so much fun. I see the fire in both of your eyes. I think it's so cool. I think that you people really need to visit their YouTube channels and see what they're doing, because if they're doing anything and transposing their passion right now in front of me, they've got to be doing it on camera, which I think is just a beautiful thing. You guys, I feel a tear. Can we hug?
Let's hug it out. Let's hug it out.
Yeah, just
I love
kidding.
it.
Just kidding, dude. This is radio.
Well-
People really don't have to see that. Okay, you wanted to talk about the
Yes,
perennial thing.
Yes. When I first started, like I said, I didn't even know what a perennial was. And what I found in 2014, I changed my parkway. And some people know what a parkway is. It's the strip between the street and the sidewalk on your property. And it's owned by the city, but you can plant a vegetable garden there. And that can be one of your big areas for growing, because that usually gets more sun than possibly your front yard, which has trees in it. And so that's what I did. And I started out just growing kale and brassicas and tomatoes and broomcorn and whatever annuals. And at some point I decided to start building a food forest. And I think it had to do with all the trips that I took over to Phoenix, because there's such a food forest movement over there. And they understand the 7 layers of a food forest, which you have to have an upper canopy to support the plants underneath. And so that's really what I've started to do. And now my parkway, I have 4 pineapple guava trees. I have a Mexican pink guava. I have a weeping acacia. And I have a lot of perennials underneath, comfrey and other perennials that live underneath and support the roots of those fruit trees. And all of this I learned by going over to Phoenix.
Oh, how
Isn't that
interesting.
funny?
Well, with that being said, again, I want to thank you guys for being here on the program. We have another hour that we're going to do together, another hour that we do of the show. So for the stations that don't carry our second hour, you gotta, because these folks will be with us. This is Nick Federoff
Yeah, where you
on
at?
gardening.
Thank you.
Very much for tuning into this hour of the program where we talk about gardening, landscaping, and I help you out with your indoor and outdoor living ideas. I take that all back, because this is going to be a different hour like you've never heard before. I have with me a couple of YouTube freaks, I tell you. They are so passionate about gardening, and actually we've got one as a Facebook peep on top of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, how did that happen?
Facebook friends?
Yeah.
I know. We got to be friends through a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours in Ireland. Can you believe that? Ireland.
Yeah, we met in the United States via Ireland.
Via
Right.
Ireland.
How did that happen?
It's
Okay.
great. Just a great Facebook friend, and did his own YouTube videos.
Well, he's
Bill
kinda
over in
wacky.
Ireland. He's a wacky, funny, crazy guy.
That
He is.
would be Bill at Gardening Today,
I
right?
had, yeah, it would be, and I had him on my TV show once, and I really should have had captions underneath him. because
Yes.
it was
Can't understand
so
him.
hard.
He has a hard Irish accent for
Yeah,
sure. It's
indeed.
great.
Enoch, tell me about yourself.
Well, I'm Enoch Graham, and I run a YouTube channel called The Urban Gardener on YouTube, of course.
Okay.
And I've been doing that for a couple of years now.
Okay. Now, if I remember correctly, you don't have any real life background experience. You don't have an agricultural degree, horticultural degree. You're You got a passion.
No, yeah, absolutely. I will just, okay, just to tell you the story. I, 5, 6, maybe even a year longer ago, I'd previously done a lot of house plants. Grew up, mother had lots and lots of house plants. I kind of carried that passion into my adulthood and had tons of house plants. But like I said, about 6 years or so ago, I had a friend bring over a cucumber plant. He's like, I think you'll know what to do with this.
It started with a cucumber.
I lived in an apartment. All I had was an apartment balcony, and I figured, okay, I know for sure, I've never grown a cucumber plant before. I know for sure this does not belong in the house with the rest of my plants. So the only space I had available for it was the balcony, and of course it was in a small pot, so I knew well enough to repot it. So I started right there. Repotted this thing, put it out on the balcony, and within a couple of months later, the thing had taken over my whole balcony. And I had all of these cucumber fruits all over the place. And it was one of the most spectacular things.
You do realize that cucumbers are actually vegetables, not fruits.
Fruits, vegetables, whatever you want to call it, Nick.
Well, it's one of the things... It's one of the things that's hardest for me to grow, and I love them. But
anyways, I'm going to tell you, it was one of the most miraculous things that I had. A light bulb just clicked in my head. My daughter, she really loved cucumbers. I pluck cucumbers right off of my balcony, bring it into my kitchen, slice it up, hand it to my daughter, and she's like, "Wow, this tastes just like a cucumber," and you grew it.
If it had not gone well, do you think you would have caught the bug?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That would be a good question. I
don't know.
Obviously don't know because it did work out, and like I said, it was really great. There's my daughter. She's like, "You grew this, and we're eating it," and I was like, "Yeah, I can't believe it." And so from there, I had just moved from my apartment to Southern Oregon and had just a little bit more space. Not much more space, but a little bit more space. So then there it goes. Oh, I can put this in this space, tomatoes. Next thing, of course, tomatoes. And then, it's moving on. I'm doing greens. I'm doing, all sorts of things in every space I can find and doing all that sort of thing. So the bug caught right on a cucumber plant on my balcony.
And then you decided to share that journey with us.
Yeah, that was the thing, though, too, is in utilizing the space, because I had limited space and different types of space than what people normally have. Like I have a cemented back patio. I build above ground raised beds out of wood. I make garden raised beds for that area anyways.
I met a guy last year that grows 400 tomato plants on his back patio.
400 tomato plants. Okay,
that's a lot of tomato.
Let's do the math here.
400, I have a picture.
400 tomato plants.
All in pots.
A typical tomato, if you're doing it halfway right, you should yield between 40 to 70 pounds of tomatoes off of one plant.
Mm-hmm.
70 times 40. I can't even do the 400. I can't even do that math. Let's go. 1, 2. That's a lot. That's what that is.
That's a ton. That's enough to do that. What is it? The tomato festival where they do the whole thing and throw them at each other in Europe.
Is that what it is?
Oh gosh, yeah. And he did a display at Annie's Annuals and Perennials up in Northern California and had probably 25 varieties and shared little chunks for people to try.
I did that.
Yeah, it was amazing.
That's a lot of tomatoes to throw, though, huh?
Yeah,
I was going to point out that I had a pivotal moment like that started me off, and it didn't start with someone handing me an edible plant, but my Parkway tree died. The Parkway is the strip between the sidewalk and the street. Technically, those are street trees, meaning they're city-owned, but mine died, and I tried to save it, and I started digging in the dirt, and I was just, every day people would walk by my sidewalk and go, what are you doing? And I kept saying, I'm a late bloomer gardener, and it just finally stuck. And once that tree died, I took it out, and I happened to meet this biodynamic farmer who also made biodynamic compost, and he's the one that told me, from now on, it was like this blessing that he gave me. He says, from now on, you're only growing edibles. And it was just I just took it on. I bought an orange tree and a lemon tree, which I still have. They still are very productive, and circled them in herbs, and I was off to the races.
But the more that I'm getting to know you, you're like the crazy bag lady with the shopping cart that has everything overflowing on it while you're walking down the street. It's just that you keep everything encapsulated at your property.
That's true.
Yes.
Well, actually, you made a good point. I thought a couple of years ago, I need more space, and there is no more space on my property because of the way it's laid out. So I had a neighbor who had, the previous person was a really good gardener, and they had sold the house to this family. And I said, "Are you guys using that garden?" And so I planted a whole garden at his house. But then they got a Labrador.
Oh, no.
So that was the end of that.
Find the bunny.
Yep. In your carrots.
So you both have two very unique stories. You not Nick, me Nick. You have two unique stories, and it brought both of you, as well as you, Kaye, to share your learning as well, because you just started just a few years ago yourself.
That's right. And sometimes people write me things like they expect me to know, and I don't, and I often just turn around and research it.
Yeah, refer them to me. I'll take care of that for you. That's what I do.
Well, now that I know you, I will.
I can lie my way through a whole lot of things over here. So we're over here visiting with these two young gardening gurus, we'll call them. And what's really exciting about it is that their knowledge in gardening is young. And being that we're here with information and ideas for the beginning and seasoned gardener, it's really important to know that you yourself, if you're thinking about gardening, wanting to get into gardening, it doesn't mean that it's a play on words when she's saying late bloomer. She does not have blue hair. She's an old bag lady like I was talking about, and Enoch is definitely a young guy over here, and he's doing what he's doing. So to get into the world of gardening, there are no ages with this. That's what's really cool, and that's why we have, through the nonprofit we support, Sustainable Environmental Education, has Project Youth Grow. It's really important to foster those young thoughts, so that they can, at one time when life permits, start their own YouTube channel, start gardening.
Well, when I first started. You need to
hold that thought, young
I will.
lady. Okay, we got to go for a break. We'll be back right after this. All right, we are back here. This is Nick Federoff on gardening, and we have a couple of very special in-studio guests. Enoch, I love the idea that you've taken this passion, this idea of gardening with you, and started to share certain things. What are can you kind of pull out a couple of things right now that really surprised you out of the idea of from when you started to right now, knowing that you're not a gardening expert, you're just passionate about growing stuff.
You mean about making videos or garden specifically?
About gardening specific.
Like things I learned.
We already know that you got a face for video.
You mean, okay, so things that I learned about, like things in gardening? Yeah. Well, I could tell you one thing. One of my favorite things to grow, it was a great learning curve, and I think it's a big learning curve for a lot of different people, is growing garlic.
Oh. Okay.
Just like here I am, it's springtime. It's time to go out and get things going. Let's get the garden started. I go and get some, you can grab garlic and get it from the cloves, and you can just grow it right there and put it in the ground and everything. And here it is spring, and I'm sticking these cloves in the ground and everything. And, they're growing and they're doing whatever. Just fine. Get down to the end of it. There's nothing at the bottom. There's nothing there. And I'm like, what's going on? Why didn't my garlic turn out? Well, if I'd researched and looked into things a little bit more than just like, I'm going to garden, I would have found out that, garlic, you probably want to start in the fall time. You want to get it ready before the winter gets going, and then you're going to see some really good bulbs and all that stuff. So went through that learning curve. I grow garlic excellent now. I love it. It's one of my favorite things to grow because it really is. Just stick it in the ground before wintertime. Let it do its thing. When it's done, it'll let you know it's done.
Okay,
you go.
let me ask
Fresh
you
garlic.
this about garlic, and Nick, please chime in. I've heard that garlic does not like competition. Garlic and onions do not like competition in the bed. And then other people say it's no problem. What do you think? Planting it, interplanting it, or planting it by itself?
I can say that my garlic that I grow it in a bed, and I grow it with other bulbs as well. So a lot of flowering like tulips and daffodils and everything that's coming up early in the spring come up right in between the garlic. And I seem to get bulbs just fine when it comes to those certain things.
So bulbs and bulbs.
I'm not necessarily sure about a larger plant. Like if you've got a larger plant in there and it's got its root system going around,
Or if you're
what
growing
the
peas
garlic is
or
going to do
whatever.
in competing with that root
Peas
system.
or
I don't think
lettuce,
so.
or you don't interplant the winter stuff?
I haven't.
Okay.
That was beautiful. I'm telling you. A couple of people have no idea what they're doing. Are exchanging ideas.
I was hoping you would chime in because I'm a little confused about it myself.
Okay,
See lessons in my garden adventure, as I said, right there.
and that's why and it's the Urban Gardener, right?
The Urban Gardener on YouTube, yes.
Yeah, the Urban Gardener on YouTube. Okay.
Just look
So-
for the guy with the nice funky
He's got the
cabbie
funky
I
hat.
hope you
This
have
has
about
the
5
cabbie
of
hat.
those.
It's a cabbie hat, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but that one looks like it's been through a war or something. It's like, yeah, what's up with that?
It's actually brand new.
Oh, it's supposed to look like
I
that.
guess so, yeah.
Well, you see, you're cool like that. That's just like on our Facebook feed over here. Someone had said, Nick, I can't stand your music because it's too harsh, or however she put
the
it.
headbanger music.
Yeah, headbanger music. So I wrote back, you're old. And then she says, I'm hardly 25.
Oh my gosh. Well, maybe just too young for that then.
Yeah, exactly. Get with the times over here. Okay, there's a lot of different plants, and first and foremost, we have to understand that this program actually is heavy in the East, absolutely huge in the East of the Mississippi, and through my years, I have found out that, and especially on the West, is that if you're on the West, do not read any information that comes from the East.
No.
Right.
Because it's totally different.
Mhm.
Absolutely different. So the differentiation has to be made. So if you're going to get a gardening book, you're going to get some online information, find out where they're at.
Yep.
I have a good book recommendation, shall I?
Go ahead.
It's Golden Gate Gardening for the microclimates along the coast of California.
There you go.
And it really was helpful when I started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you find those kind of things.
I have a book called Gardening West of the Cascades.
Nice.
Gets a whole general idea of the whole West Coast.
So that kind of stuff is really important to have. Find whatever that is within your area, and then you could try and do this, that, and the other. There's a reason why Gilroy, California, is the garlic capital of the world, and you're going to be hard pressed to find any onions being grown in Gilroy, and there's a reason for that.
All right, let's
Competition.
get the information, Nick.
They're competitors.
They're
They're competing plants. They're competing plants. They compete for the same types of nutrients in the soil.
Alliums?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Both
Onions
alliums,
and
right?
garlic.
Yeah, onions and garlics. But they're going after. They're actually slurping up the same nutrients. So the stronger of the two plants is typically going to win. So if you ended up getting your onion plant in before you got your garlic plant in, or vice versa, it's stronger. That's the
Whoever
fittest.
was in first.
Yeah,
is
whoever was in
Interesting.
first. That's who's gonna do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you can have your tulips and your garlic. My goodness, what does your garden smell like? Okay.
I can't.
Oh man, here can I tell you one quick story that happened this last year? One of the things about my channel is I grow in unique spaces as well, and I grow along my alleyways. Okay, and I have this back alleyway strip where I was growing my garlic last year. I had a whole row of it all along this strip, and I came outside and I just smell garlic everywhere, and then I also heard a lawnmower.
Oh,
My
dear.
neighbor had decided that he was going to go about the alleyway and do some lawn mowing along the alleyway,
Knock all the weeds down.
and knocked all of my garlic tops off. Now, here's a good thing to know about garlic, though, is they didn't really mind that. I was more worried about what had happened than my garlic were. But it was a very odd thing to come
So it's sort of
outside
like-
and just smell the most intense garlic smell you can smell all over
Sort
the
of
place.
like clipping the garlic snapes, I guess. The
Yep.
garlic is fine.
Onions, garlic,
Right.
those things don't mind a
Do you guys
haircut.
you guys familiar with an ornamental plant called society garlic?
I have that.
Society garlic is. Now, I'm not a big garlic fan. I mean, I'll have it on toast, I'll have it in spaghetti, but I'm not a really big fan.
Right.
But society garlic is for the person who needs a garlic scent in their garden all of the time. And unlike certain plants like roses that you just come up to it and you smell it, society garlic doesn't smell like garlic until you touch it.
Right. Bang
You
into it.
Just bang into it, touch it, and it releases and just hits you in the face with this amazing garlic smell, but it's not edible.
No, and if it's in a happy spot and it starts getting big, it provides this umbrella shade. And I have a lizard that lives underneath.
No,
I do.
Wow.
I show my lizards. I that's one thing about my channel, and I've always been interested in bugs and insects, and I have a lot of videos on the monarch butterfly. I grow a lot of milkweed for monarchs, and I always. You were talking before about appealing to young people, and when I first started, I had 3 little girls on one side of me and 1 little girl on the other side of me. And so I put them in my videos a lot because I wanted my videos to appeal to parents with children and, show them how fun it is. And one little girl once, she took a bite out of a carrot, and I said, so it's really good for you. And she goes, so we can see, right? Because it's good for your
yes.
vision.
Cute.
And it's just so cute.
All right, we're visiting over here at thethingsgreen.com Botanical Gardens, learning about gardening, landscaping, and all of your indoor and outdoor living ideas from some novice gardeners who have some pretty big play on the YouTube channel to which they share their information with you. We're going to go for a quick little break, and when we come back, we'll be visiting with them a little more, so don't go anywhere. Be careful, people, okay?
Okay. I have one word. Hibiscus.
You want to know something? First, I'm going to say something very harsh, and I'm sure that Kay's going to end up, she's going to want to strangle me on this one,
Oh,
too.
dear.
Okay, vegetable gardens are not pretty gardens. They're not pretty unless you take care of them. Otherwise, they're usually very weedy. They're very overgrown. People have a very difficult time taking care of them. Okay, so now Kay is telling me
That's true.
and she has a story here where she says how she started was that she planted in her parkway. Okay, so when you plant in your parkway, that's not a traditional area where one would plant
No.
a garden.
No.
And I don't know if you know this or not, but in the city which you live, it used to be, and it still might be, illegal to do that.
It's not.
It's
I
not
know.
even?
No.
Okay. I had a very good
But I was doing it before it was legal.
okay. I had a very good friend of mine who lived in your city. He lived on a corner lot. His name was Eddie Albert.
Oh.
Green Acres.
Yeah.
Remember him? Eddie Albert, may he rest in peace,
Right.
lived in the same city you're at. He fought every single year to put his garden in his front yard. People hated it. But he had the time to take care of it. It was actually a pretty garden.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem he had is that he thought when you had corn that was 8 feet tall and it started to dry out, he would do things with it because he was a spokesperson for a pumpkin cutting company, a company that made blades for cutting,
Oh, dear.
carving pumpkins.
Okay.
So they would use his corn in the presentations for the film shoots and for the TV shoots and for the
Just dried corn stalks.
just the
That's-
dried
that's
corn
funny.
stalks.
Yeah.
So the city would get on him. They finally nailed him on not because it was a garden, because it was a fire hazard.
Well,
Oh,
corn,
yeah.
dried corn is, yeah.
So I'm envisioning in your town, and it's an upscale town where everybody is growing all these vegetables. And it's
No,
like,
and-
oh my goodness, what are these people doing?
You
Now
know,
I know
not-
that certain
not too many
spaces
people-
like that are illegal in some places, but if they are, I still challenge people to grow there anyways. Grow vegetables. Challenge your city.
Well, no, what
challenge
you
your
have
spaces.
to do is, like,
Go
you're
after
talking
it.
about
Grow
two different
food.
things.
Grow things.
I
and
think
that's
you're
one of
talking
the
about
things
two different things, Enoch. Is if you live in an HOA, they have very specific rules about what you can do in the front yard, and a lot of people would like to grow in the front yard, and they simply can't because of these rules.
Yeah, and that would
So
be the
what you
difference with
have to do
HOAs
is you
versus
have
your
to-
city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to run for a position on the board at your HOA and get the rules changed.
Go
That's all
around
you
it.
can do.
Now, there's that one guy in Compton, California. Have
Are you
you
talking
met-
about Ron Finley?
Is that right? Is that what he is?
Yep.
I've
Yeah.
never met him. I don't know him.
He's awesome.
One
I
of the
have
reasons why I made the statement I just did.
Really, because I have seen some of the things that he has done. I saw how he begun what he had did, and I have to give that guy big applause because what he's done here he's literally tied a broken community
Together.
Yes, he does. And if
And-
anybody has a chance to check out his TED Talk, just look up Ron Finley TED Talk.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing talk. An amazing gentleman. I
Really?
can't wait to meet him someday too.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Yeah, I'd love to meet the guy. I think they tried to get on the show at one time, or I don't remember. I've got people that contact me all the time, but very few get through. By the way.
Oh, well, I feel very blessed.
But the thing of it is that what he has done is that he has encouraged people to grow vegetable gardens, starting in their parkways, if I remember correctly.
That's what he did.
And then moving to those who are brave enough to move them into their actual front yards.
Yep.
Right.
And then taking corner lots and transforming them into growing areas.
Space that doesn't have
into-
any intention of being used.
Yeah.
Right.
Use
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
And use it for something like Ron's doing too, because one of the other things is he's also bringing a lot of at-risk youth into this project, and he's bringing them in to learn and teach them about gardening skills that gets them off
And
the streets and out of the trouble that they would be
But
in.
he has a lot of other vegetables growing in a previous swimming pool and containers and all this. But the beauty of that original Parkway garden is that whatever's grown there is free for the people in the neighborhood to take.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty. That's not necessarily the case in my garden,
Yeah.
but I am happy to share if somebody asks me.
Did you hear what she just said? You leave my garden alone. There's actually
Do you know how hard it is to grow a cucumber where I live?
there's actually a really interesting. I don't know how we want to take this, but there's a biblical backing that gardeners practice that they do not know that they practice.
What is it?
And that is that farmers, because they were talking farming back in those days, you are to allow 10% of whatever you grow to be gleaned.
Yes.
All right, and you don't chase them away. Anything after 10%, you're stealing because you're stealing their money like that.
Mm-hmm.
I challenge any one of you in this room. I bet that you give away more than 10%
Oh,
of whatever
gosh, yeah.
you've ever picked.
I gave away
Yes.
100 pounds of pineapple guavas.
You see, and I think that right there is really cool, and that's what you're going to be finding with this kind of within a gardening movement.
I do believe the term was decimated too. So a lot of people don't understand that about that word. It's actually a minus 10% is what decimated is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're getting deep.
We're getting real
I
deep
did
there.
not know that.
But I did want to say, though, that I do have an overwhelming amount of vegetables. And another thing, too, is I grow along my alleyways, and I use a lot of space that is somewhat public. And I get a lot of people that walk through. And every now and then, as I'm checking my garden, I'll notice some things not quite there that
Now,
were there before.
Are you making raised gardens out of that, or are you just growing right in the asphalt area?
I've put in a couple of raised bed type situations to kind of see how that works versus growing in which would be right next to what would be the asphalt area, or in my case, the alleyway is a gravel alleyway. So you've got a gravel alleyway, and I've removed from the side what would be a fence line a lot of the gravel and replaced with compost and new soil and all that, and built up in-ground beds.
Well, with that, we're going to go for a quick little break, and we're talking gardening and having some fun on the program here, learning about gardening from the beginning novice eye. And we'll return right after this. Don't go anywhere. All right, We're back, everybody. This is Nick Federoff. Thank you very much for tuning into this hour of the program. Okay, so we almost did break into a fight a couple seconds because I called you guys sissies, didn't
Yes.
I?
How dare you?
Yeah,
I had
and
no
I didn't
problems
take that well.
with that.
Everything was going
I said you
just
should have
fine
seen me
until then.
yesterday at the nursery if you think I'm a sissy.
Okay, so I take my seed pack. This is what we were talking about. We're talking about seeds, and you actually had a very interesting comment about that.
Well, I was saying I wish they could design a seed packet that, when you opened it up, all the seeds didn't fall on the ground, or you get all the dirt from your hands back in with your seeds, and it's always a problem. Every time I get the bed ready, then I got to go wash my hands and come back out and put the seeds in, and then get dirty again.
How filthy do you get in your garden?
I do get very dirty.
Golly. I have never had that problem.
You haven't?
No.
How do you do it?
No. I take my seeds and I'll open up the packet, the one side,
Very carefully.
and I'll open it very well. First, you have to take it and bang it.
Yes,
So that
I
all the
know.
seeds go in one direction, and then you take and you open it up very carefully. Or if I'm smart about it, I'll take a knife and I'll cut the knife so it's nice and neat. And then I'll see, number one, if the seeds are at the bottom or not. And half the time they're starting to put them in those little packets.
I know, little ones, yeah.
Yeah. They put little packets in there, and you pull it out. You just open it. You just put them in your hand.
But did you put them in your hand and then you
put it
pick them up?
Yes,
and
that's
you've got dirt
what
on
you
your
do.
hand. Every time you drop one, you have
go like
dirt.
this. Look, it's really easy. You lick your finger, your and your thumb, and you rub them on your pan, and then you pick one up, and then you
Okay.
plant it.
All right, I'm going to use your technique from now
That's
on.
all. Jeez,
Just lick the fingers, right?
lick your fingers. Oh, I have seen that before when people go into supermarkets. And I actually watched this guy one time.
I'm
just totally
terrified of what you're going to say.
licked his forefinger, licked his thumb. Each time he touched tomatoes and every single fruit.
Wash your vegetables.
Why?
You have to wash your vegetables.
Yes.
He touched all the apples. He never put one apple in his bag. He went someplace else.
Oh my!
Oh, it was horrible.
That's
absolutely horrible. Yeah, it was disgusting.
Yeah, that's kind of.
But it's important
crazy.
to take in. It is important to take in. Wash the vegetables.
Yeah. Wash your vegetables. Even if I'm growing organically and growing at home and everything, I'm still taking them in and washing them. There's still a bunch of other things
I
getting
do
on your vegetables you don't think
pluck
about.
a tomato off and rub it off and pop it in my mouth.
Well, that's
but I
all
usually
right.
Here's
do.
something to think about. And I'm not sure necessarily, but from my area, I get a bunch of slugs and snails. Okay, they don't eat every vegetable that they crawl across.
I know, the little pigs. you think they would.
So
just-
think about
they're
all
just
them
sliding
nice
through.
little snail trails and
I don't
everything
know-
on your tomatoes.
Look, I've never heard anybody die from
Or,
snail,
well,
snail
tomatoes,
slime.
but
I don't know what the
more like
difference
your
is, but
squash
when
and
I
all that.
first started, it was like a slug and snail convention in every section of my garden. And now I don't have those kind of problems, and I'm not sure why.
Yeah,
Maybe they're there and I don't see them.
Well, cultivation will weed out literally weeds and other insects.
or attracting other things that weren't there before that are
Yes.
now taking care of the
particular
problem
problem.
for you
Mm.
because you've brought in that vegetation that they needed.
Okay, and that actually. Well, let me address your idea on the snails. The first thing people do, they figure, oh no, snails are. You have the snail bait and all that. Thankfully, there are organic snail baits out there now.
I did use
and in
those.
fact, as a matter of fact, we mentioned earlier about gardening today on Facebook. I had somebody reach out to me and send me some things that I from the UK. They sent me some stuff to show me what they're doing on keeping snails out of their raised planter beds.
Oh.
And it's an organic material. But anyway, it'll never work over here in the United States. It's not pretty enough. But let's put it that way. But what's really interesting is that people will take snail bait and they use it improperly. This is where my knowledge in handling toxic chemicals actually is kind of interesting. People will take and they'll think, oh, I'm not going to use Snarol or whatever, the metaldehyde or methocarb. Those are the two most active ingredients is for taking care of snails. So if you take the metaldehyde or methocarb, and most people will sprinkle it all around their vegetable gardens. That's the wrong thing to do.
What's the right thing to do?
First and foremost, read the package. Read the
Would you wanna,
directions. No. If you have a vegetable right here, you go 10 feet away next to your neighbor's yard and you put your bait right there. Because what it is, it's an attractant.
To it.
You pull the snails away from your garden. That's how you do it. Yeah, see, people,
Mind blown.
I don't know if I've used that, so I'm going to have to go back and look at what I did use and see if that's what it.
Yeah.
It
Now,
does.
if you're using something like, what's the name of that stuff? It's a
Sluggo?
If you're using Sluggo, they used to advertise it for years on here on the program. The reason why they don't is because they got bought out. No, actually, what it was is that the company that was doing all of the marketing for them, they had an exclusive, and when Sluggo started to sell really well, the company decided they're going to get rid of the marketing end of it and just take over for themselves. A German company. Yeah,
Wow.
it was really bad what they did. Anyway, we're going to go for a quick little break. When we come back, last segment of the show, folks. You don't want to go anywhere. Get your pens and papers up because we have some cheap and shameless plugs that are coming up, and they're going to be so succinct. One of them you're going to get writing cramps on. All right, but you just. But we'll be back right after this. All right, we're back over here. This is Nick Federoff on gardening. All right, I have to, Enoch. I have to tell you, I think it's really great that you reached out to me over here. I literally do turn a lot of people down, and I just had appreciated the fact that a way that you did it was really, really good. Saw some of your videos that you did. I didn't share any of that with you yet.
Right.
Saw some of that. I figured, this guy is really kind of a cool guy. Of course,
Well,
I didn't
thank you
think
very
you were
much.
going to bring her with you, but
Right.
it's turned out to be a treat like nothing else as well.
Excellent.
So with that, you have a YouTube channel, and slowly and clearly tell everybody where your YouTube channel is.
All right, the YouTube channel is The Urban Gardener, and that'll be at www.
Not www, 3 W's.
3 W's.
Yeah.
www.youtube.com/C/The Urban Gardener.
I wonder why they put the C in there. What's the C stand for?
Creator.
Oh, is that what it is? Oh, you're a creator.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
I don't think
Okay.
I have to see. Now I
Oh, you
feel
don't
bad.
have a C? Oh, man. Are you in bad shape
Well,
or
she
what?
probably has the older YouTube links that
I
they were
have
giving
user.
out. Yep.
Oh.
The
But
user one.
anyway, all you got
I
to do
see.
is type in. Are you ready for me?
Yeah. Wait.
My
Hold on. I gotta open up my lunch
Are
here
you
first.
ready for me, Nick?
Here we go.
My website is www.latebloomershow.com, and on YouTube it's my name, Kaye Kittrell, Late Bloomer Show. Excuse me, I messed up. Late Bloomer Urban Organic Garden Show. It's all of that.
All of that. There you go. Well, I'm sure you can find it through your website. We'll make sure that we post it through our stuff over here as
Thank
well
you.
to make sure that everybody gets an idea with that. So, let's do one final question.
All right.
Okay. All right. Let's
Hit
try
us.
to work this all in.
What do you got?
What is your most favorite part of gardening?
I know.
Okay, go ahead.
My favorite part of gardening, and I say this a lot in my videos, is the connections that I make through gardening, Enoch being one. And it's incredible. If you go through my garden, you will see half of what's in my garden was either suggested by someone else or mailed directly to me. It's incredible.
Nice. Sir.
Yes, I was about to say pretty much the same thing in a sense, though, that the
Don't
garden
be a
community is just an amazing, amazing community of people. And they're just really kind of a tight-knit kind of group when they come together through all the different social media. And I've just had an excellent time discussing and talking about different things that I'm doing with people all the time. So I love the garden community, and that's one of my favorite things about gardening. But getting back to kind of what we were talking about just a little bit earlier, my second favorite thing is just putting my hands in the soil.
There you go.
There
I
you go.
love
Now
the
you-
feeling
That's
of earth. connecting with me.
You
personally.
do realize that between the both of you, we should start singing "Michael Rowed the Boat Ashore" because this is just like a bonding moment.
This
here.
is right. I mean,
all right, thanks a lot, you guys.
We
Greatly
start talking about
appreciate
dirt
it.
and it's all over.
This is Nick Federoff on gardening. Remember, whenever out in the yard and garden, green side up.
So, all right, everybody. I hope that you've all been enjoying the radio program so far. We've been talking about a lot of really great and interesting gardening subjects. And like I said before, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything for Nick, maybe Kaye, or anything at all, put those comments down in the comment section below. And if there's anything for them, I'll point them in the direction and help them answer any questions or comments you might have. So please do that. That would be really great. And like I say all the time, give this video a big thumbs up for Kaye and Nick and this special feature that we've got here. So far what we've been watching is the first couple of hours of Nick's radio program that he airs on Saturday mornings on many different radio channels throughout the country. But we had so much fun talking about all the different garden subjects and all these different things that Nick decided to keep the audio and the video running so that we could do just a straight direct Facebook feed, and we did some bonus content for everybody on Facebook. So I've got that here coming up for us, and like I said, hit that like button.
What are we
Joe
talking about? I'm back.
You are back. No, we're just talking about how to correctly
weird
pronounce
other
his
person.
name. It's Enoch.
Oh,
Enoch.
I see.
Enoch, not Enoch, but Enoch.
Well, I wanted to talk about a plant.
A plant.
Yeah,
Okay.
hibiscus.
Okay.
It's so amazing what I've learned recently about hibiscus.
Oh.
And it all started, I didn't have any growing in my garden. And last year I went to Mobile, Alabama,
Okay.
and I met an amazing gardener named Pat Smith. And she had sent me, before I went there, she had sent me a cranberry hibiscus. And I don't think a lot of people realize that the leaves and flowers and the calyxes are all edible. And you can make tea from the dried flowers. You can candy the calyx, which holds the petals of the flower, dries, and they're beautiful.
Yeah.
But what I didn't realize was there are so many. The world of hibiscus is huge.
Yeah. I used to have a friend of mine that was a garden communicator. He lived in Florida. I have to be honest, I forgot his name because he passed away about 15, 20 years ago. And that's when, prior to that, before passing away, that's when I learned about hibiscus and all of the different varieties and how easy they are to propagate and just perpetuate, and the different colors.
Oh,
And you can get hibiscus that are single petaled, doubled, tripled, and then of course just packed like they're huge corsages.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing stuff.
wow, mine's not like that, but mine is solid, like reddish cranberry color, and everything is the same color: the stem, the leaves, and the flowers. It's all one color.
Wow.
It's stunning.
Nice.
And I just assumed this would be like a little bush, and at the end of the year I'd cut it back and grow back to 2 or 3 feet tall. But it is about 10 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's right by the driveway, so I have to support it.
You know, and you do have to. It's actually better for the plant if you were to take and do some thinning out of the plant. Never put shears to a hibiscus. You want to do selective pruning of the branches, because when you have any kind of leaf that's big leafed, never put shears to them. You always want to do with your secateurs, hand pruners, and because you'll be ruining the integrity of the leaf in the plant, and you harm it, and it has a greater tendency for insects and disease to get into the plant.
Are you talking about shears like for a hedge?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I never use those.
Yeah, so your hand pruners.
Right.
Okay? So you would use your hand pruners or loppers.
Mhm.
In fact, I use loppers 90% of the time as opposed to hand shears, because you have just more strength to it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'll trim 98% of a rose bush with loppers.
Yeah.
I don't use hand pruners. I mean, I do use hand pruners, but
Come to think about it, I think that's what I do. Just I think because of the easiness of
Well,
it. with my
roses are
Yeah.
very dense. I mean, they're hard to cut with a hand.
They
with a
are.
hand.
Yeah. That one. That's why you have the the ratchet ones.
Mhm.
Ratchet pruners are really cool for
I
that.
need
The
to
only-
get some of those.
Yeah, but the only problem is you cannot. Almost every. In fact, I don't even think there's not a ratchet pruner that is a scissor or bypass type. They're all anvil type.
Oh,
So, and anvil type are not good for pruning roses. They're good for if you want to get a big cut. You know, if you have limited hand strength or really hard branch.
hmm
But always use the. You could use that, but you try to use the lopper first, and you want to use the bypass type.
and
sci-
the
they call
purpose
scissor.
on that, why it's not good?
Yeah, because it doesn't get close to the branch to where you have to cut it off.
You know
Okay.
what I find, and my hands aren't particularly small for a woman, but I find that it's so hard to find a good pruner because sometimes the grip when it's open it goes out too far, and so you're having to every time you squeeze it you're having to grab it and
She's right.
squeeze it,
hmm
and it's like, why don't they design pruners for
Okay.
smaller hands?
Look up a company. They're called Centurion.
Okay,
In fact, I think the website is centurionbrands.com.
okay.
I have seen these guys produce pruners that are pretty amazing. And they have it's more of a prosumer line. So it's not professional. It's not consumer. It's that prosumer line right in between.
Mhm.
And they may have something that will work for you.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
And the
check
other
it
thing
out.
is that they're bright yellow pruners.
Well, you'll never lose it.
Oh, yeah. Drop
'cause-
them on the ground. They're there. You know?
Because this man who worked, at my house for a while, he said these are the best because they're the bypass pruner type, But I couldn't even get it was just too spread too far. I couldn't get my hand on it.
Yeah. That is a big issue.
Yeah.
That's an issue there. You had a question.
Yes. Well, I have.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
What do we?
Now, she makes me want to have to go take a run too. So,
Ooh.
do you think you
Are we
guys
gonna take
can
a break?
carry it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you guys got to keep on carrying, man. We're live.
Oh, we're
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We can keep
live.
on
Oh, we can
carrying.
carry it on.
We can
Absolutely.
carry on. So what are you actually working on this winter? I mean, if the weather is permitting, are you?
Well,
have
yeah,
you got
for me,
everything
my
inside?
winter is different than from what you have, so I'm dealing with a more intense winter, whereas you probably still can harvest tomatoes, probably even got flowers and
no.
everything coming up.
No,
well,
no,
I've
no
seen a few
tomatoes.
plants. I've seen a few plants in the area that I've been kind of like, wow, that's just something. Mine are all dead. Everything's done. We've hit frost. So at this point in time,
So you
we're just holding
planning
on
for
to the
next
hardy
year.
stuff. We're holding on to the hardy stuff. I've got greens. I've got
Well, for whoever's listening, Enoch is actually coming to my garden to see it in person for the first time tomorrow.
yes,
Right.
this would be great.
And it is my Thursday workday. I have a Thursday workday video series where a lot of the work in my garden is done on Thursday when I have Eric, my garden helper, come.
Well, Eric will
And
have some
so-
help this Thursday.
Well, but you don't know. Yesterday I went crazy. I went to the nursery because I just got back from Phoenix, and every time I go over there, I want to come home and I want to plant more things that they're growing over there, even though I don't have space.
Right.
So I bought yesterday. I bought a papaya, but it's not just one because
That
they
is-
don't sell just one.
No.
She said they only sell them in threes,
Oh, so you had
and
to
they
get
get
three.
huge. And I bought one of those. I don't know where it's going to go. I bought a loquat.
Oh,
Don't know
wow.
where that's going to go. That gets huge. And I bought a calamandin,
Yeah. Oh,
which
wow.
is a hybrid between a lime and a kumquat or something. I don't even know.
No,
I don't
I've
know.
never seen
But
one, but
I learned all this on my trip just 2 days ago to Phoenix.
over to Phoenix. Yeah,
Yeah.
where they have a lot of great stuff like
And
that
another
growing.
thing I really want, but they didn't have, was a Jamaican cherry. It's
Oh,
not a cherry. It's a very strange fruit, and it has an odd taste. But I want to grow one.
a Jamaican cherry.
And then I
huh?
want a persimmon, and I definitely want a pomegranate. And I know I could grow pomegranate.
You want a big ranch.
I
You
want a
want like a
bigger garden,
big
is what I
place where
want.
you could just start putting trees
Tear
and
my house
everything
down and just
everywhere.
make a garden there.
You have to start convincing a bunch of your neighbors to start letting you plant your trees over there.
Yeah, no, that's really, really hard to do. People are so focused on, these really pretty little gardens that, are not challenging. My garden is challenging.
Yeah. having an urban type garden where you're trying to fit in and pack in and do all that sort of stuff is just got a whole bunch of different things going on. So it's definitely a challenge to try to keep this going while you're moving on to this, and then you've got this going there.
Well, the
this is
biggest-
about to fruit over here. This is just getting started over here. You know, there's tons of
all
things
those
going
are fun challenges, but the hard thing is when you crowd things together, you get more fungal diseases.
Yep.
And that's the thing that I struggle so much with. We're talking about fungal diseases, Nick.
Boy.
Aren't you glad you came back?
This got right into the fungus.
Okay, this is a Things Green Extra over here, and we're just kind of yapping. And the reason why is because when we were doing the radio show, I knew that we'd not have enough time to talk about it. So go ahead, let's talk.
All right. Well, one of the things I wanted to kind of get maybe your thoughts on is something that a lot of us are dealing with here. Maybe, me in Southern Oregon, and as well as not sure when this is going to actually. Well, we're out right now, right?
Yeah. So I'm in Southern California. You're in Southern California. Well, actually, we're all in Southern California. Right
But
now.
a lot of people are dealing with here on the West Coast is these amazing, amazing fires that are just destroying and doing so much damage right now. And one of the other places that I've been hearing from with a lot of people in my area, because I live in a valley and several different valleys in the area. Once those forest fires kick in, that smoke just comes right in. And it just fills our valley like a bowl. And we deal with this last summer, almost two plus months solid of just unhealthy smoke in the air. Now, one of the things I was hearing from a lot of other gardeners I talked to, because I had a similar situation, was my garden was not that productive this year. And I've had some really good productive seasons. I know my soil's good. I've worked on all that sort of stuff. And it just seems to be a common thought between a lot of people that it's the smoke that's really just getting in and interfering with our plants. So
Well, it's interesting because ash is actually good for plants, right?
It is. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's a form of potassium, potash.
right.
Potassium.
Yeah.
I just wonder, like ash, though, incorporated into your soil,
NPK.
right?
If
Ash
you have
incorporated
too
into
much,
your
maybe it
soil,
throws
right?
the-
Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium.
But what about ash that's falling on your plant and collecting on your leaves?
And tie it into what you had said earlier off the air, the fact that plants are known to
Right.
clean the air up.
Well, that was one of the things.
Yeah,
was
I
gonna say,
spoke last February, I think it was last February, for the International Society of Arboriculture and their street tree seminars over at the I forget what it's called over there, big fancy place.
mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I was a keynote speaker, and I talked about indoor pollution
Right.
and how plants, how important they are, how they clean up your indoor environment. There's all kinds of pollutants everywhere, and it's worse indoors than it is outdoors.
Right.
But I started outdoors
Right.
and bringing up the concept and the whole thought and the theories of how plants clean the air.
Right.
But when you're talking about an anomaly, something that's much different,
When the plants are coated with a film, then it's harder for them to
it is
photosynthesize.
photosynthesize.
Now, this
Take care.
goes to one of the things is there is not very much information for a gardener out there to be able to go, okay, is this what's affecting?
Right.
Is this smoke a cause or something that's affecting my garden? But when I went and researched, the only thing I could find was, like you're talking about indoor pollution or people who smoke cigarettes and have plants. And one of the things they said, is that it's not good because of the tar or those things in the smoke.
Well, the
that's just-
nicotine
that's layering the leaves of the plant.
Okay,
and
back
kinda
at-
suffocating.
Okay, back in the day, back in the 50s, they used to use. In fact, even up into I used to work at a nursery in the late 70s, and we used to sell nicotine smokers,
Oh.
where you put what do you call it? Cigarette. What do you call that? What's inside?
Tobacco.
Is it tobacco. You put tobacco inside of these containers. You'd light it, and then you'd go through your plants, and you would smoke
them out.
because nicotine kills things.
Right.
And
You mean bugs?
yeah, bugs.
Okay.
Yeah, well, and people too. But,
Yes, that's-
No.
I was going to say.
but that was a common practice. So Yes. So doing the indoor smokers and all that, the plants can only take so much until you close up all the stomates. Underneath each leaf, they're called stomate. They're called stomates. Individually, they're called stomata. I don't know. What's stomata with you? Okay. So these stomates or stomata, the plant literally breathes because of this. Okay. You put it in a microscope, they'll open and close.
Yeah.
It's what's bringing in oxygen and sending out oxygen and bringing in the CO2. Certain plants absorb more CO2 than they do other plants. So that's why certain plants have more of cleaning properties than others. So the thing of it is that if you live in a smoggy area, if you live in an area that is getting this kind of smoke and all that, it is imperative to wash your plants.
I was just
off.
going to tell you that 2 nights, last night and the night before last, I gave all my plants a shower.
Yeah.
With the hose was just full blast. I also threw some on the roof just to be safe. But, all the trees, everything. I just washed everything up. And I would never, ever, ever, ever do that because of mildew where I am by the coast. But I figured what the heck.
And the other thing is that people, especially in Southern California, you don't have this problem. We have this thing called the drought. And we've been feared. They have put fear in us that if you use your water other than for the exact purposes of what it's intended for, that the world's going to, California's going to fall out into the ocean.
I have a question about that. I just called the DWP the other day, and they're sending me information about a landscape meter for my water. Do you have that, or do you know about those?
No, I think that's absolutely ridiculous. There are so many studies that show that California, only 8% of the overall usage of water is used by the consumer, you and I.
Yeah.
Oh.
We could turn on all of our faucets on today, all of them on, and we still would not impact the drought or anything that is. We're not in a drought right now. We have plenty of water right now.
Right.
But that's why you're not hearing a lot about it.
Well, my point is that you can save money by having one of these landscape meters because you are billed on not the water that comes into your house. This is the way I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong. You are billed on the water that they have to take back into the system, into the sewer system, and deal with. If you have a separate landscape meter on the water that comes in that just goes into your garden and doesn't go back out, then you might not have to pay as much money.
That's interesting.
And
I haven't heard about
I'm trying
that.
to find out about that.
Yeah, I've got some DWP peeps
Oh,
that
good.
I can talk to. In fact,
She said she was sending me the information.
I had the head honcho on my show one time, so I
Yay.
could probably call them up and find out what's what.
Well, one of the people that that does the water conservation in Los Angeles, one of the nonprofits, is the one that told me to get one.
Interesting. I don't know if I like that idea,
Oh.
because well, look we do know this, that out of that 8%, like 70% is actually used inside the house, not in the landscape. The landscape's getting the bad rap. But you give me a leaky toilet and a leaky faucet inside your house, you're wasting more water than you will in your landscape. Your landscape's not the culprit. Now, one of my sayings been for years. In fact, if you go onto my website, thingsgreen.com, I'm the only person that's ever done a live 1.5 hour television show on the drought.
Wow.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, and somebody called me up. Actually, we have a live studio audience in there, and this one gal, she came up to me. She was about 20 years old. She said something that was just like, wow, didn't think about it. She says, "Did you know that this is like the length of a feature film?"
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I'm about to go on.
And what's your point?
Yeah.
But yeah, we did this show, and it was anything and everything that has to do about the drought and using the tools to combat whatever the drought is in that show.
Right.
So, and one of the things that we bring out is how much water are we actually using, or shall I say not using?
Or shall you say wasting?
Or wasting, because that's what I wanted to get at. I realized that during the radio show that we did, I mentioned the words my mantra. But one of the things that I beat the drum on is that it's not about not using water; it's about strategically placing it.
Mm-hmm.
You could use all the water that you want. Just place it properly.
Yeah.
Right.
That's all.
Well, it's
Showering with a friend, putting it on the lawn, those kind of things.
I think I think the number one thing, and this is kind of hard in Southern California. A lot of people are not connected to their lawns. They let their lawn service professionals handle everything. Well, they're not there at 7 or 6 a.m. when the sprinklers go off.
Yeah.
And those people are often sleeping or they've already left for work, and they're not supervising. They have things on a timer. And last year, there's one house in my neighborhood, and it rained. We got 2 big rains on a Friday. And I came by at 7 a.m., and both times, full-on sprinklers all over and it was pouring rain.
And that's a shame when that happens.
And then it rolls down, and
It's
what
a shame
happens
for all those living things too.
and people may think about, I've been learning a lot about infiltration lately, and the filtration rate of water that the water cannot, the lawn cannot handle the water, and it runs off, and it just goes down to the storm drain.
Yeah.
And
you know what? You're absolutely right. It is the homeowner's responsibility. There's a way of fixing that, and what you do is that a typical lawn only needs 1 1/4 inch of water per week on their lawn. It's actually not a lot of water. So what you do is that you need to take some type of cups, put them out in your yard, turn the water on, and wait to. You have to put a 1 inch, measure it out 1 1/4 inch, measure it out, put it all over your lawn. And the reason why we put them all over the lawn is because we want 2 things to happen. We want even coverage, and we want their sprinklers from this point to this point. We want this one to hit over here and this one to hit over here. Not just overlapping this much, but hitting head-to-head coverage.
mm-hmm.
So you turn your sprinklers on, you allow these things to fill up. If you start seeing it running off, turn your sprinklers off.
Yeah.
Time it. So you're going to time it. Turn your sprinklers off. And then once it's settled in, filtrated or percolated through, turn it on again. And then you wait until you see some more runoff.
Well, this
And
is
then-
the problem, is a lot of people don't even know how to turn them on or
Yeah.
turn them off.
You're right. So anyway, so you do this until that 1 1/4 inch is filled up. You look at the time that it took to that filled up that water, and then you divide it by either 2 or 3 or 4, and that'll tell you how many minutes to water each, either day, every other day, or whatever. Just as long as you get that 1 1/4 inch water. Now, mind you, we're coming up around winter time. When winter comes, you don't need 1 1/4 inch. You might need 3, maybe 3/4. Well, in Southern California, we might need it.
Yeah.
Where you're living, absolutely not.
I don't need anything. I turn the hoses off.
Turn it all off. Do you guys even have sprinkler systems, or do you have we all have sprinkler systems over here?
I've used some for my lawn and whatnot, but it's just a constant battle. I don't have a real lawn per se, and so I just kind of let that go as I work more on the other garden and stuff like that, and let the lawn do pretty much whatever it does during the summer.
See, you're lucky you can do that. We don't do that over here.
It'll brown out
I don't
for
have
brown
lawn.
out for a
You don't have
month
lawn?
and be green a
No,
month
it
later.
came out
So
to put in the vegetable beds.
I
that's
don't have
right.
that. I don't have that option though. I'm
She's
a
little bit of
renter.
a hippie, I think.
I'm just
That's
one of
rough.
those unfortunate renters, so I
That's-
don't get the option of tearing up my owner's front yard as much as I would love to.
You gotta ask them. Hey, can I tell
Oh,
you
if
your
you see my
front
last video, I don't get much great
Feedback.
situation from my landlord. Mind you, one of the big features of my channel was growing rooftop peppers on top of a carport rooftop that I had. And I'd grown them up there for a few years. So mind you, to let you know about my owner, I hadn't talked to that person at all in many years. I've lived there for a long time, but I've been growing up for about 4 years up there on top of this carport. And
he nailed you.
someone come by to check something for something one day, and the next thing you know, they're sending me a notice. Not just a, hey, you got to take those down. It's, hey, you either take those down or move.
Wow.
Some people don't just understand exactly what you're
No
doing
sense
and that
of
sort
humor.
of stuff, but yet I'm definitely not going to be able to tear up that front yard.
The day when landlords and HOAs and communities all over embrace food gardens in public spaces and front yards will be a beautiful day.
I truly, truly believe so.
Because if you're driving through the South, I'm from the South, and growing up, you would drive by, and of course, people had big yards, small houses, big yards, and there would be as much space planted in a row garden, veggie row garden, as the lawn and the house on the other side.
Well, those actually were called. That actually goes back
Victory
to begin time. They're kitchen gardens.
Kitchen gardens.
In victory gardens. Yeah.
Walk out your door,
Yeah.
your kitchen door, right to the garden.
Yeah.
Both of my. I was going to say I never gardened before, but both of my grandparents were farmers, and so I grew up eating fresh farm produce. And my one grandfather, he smoked his own hams and everything. So it was really amazing growing up and having access to all that great food.
And that's one of the things about growing your own food and that sort of thing, too, is that, there are a lot of places around the country where people have a lot of space, a lot of places to put in row gardens, kitchen gardens, and that sort of stuff. But there's a lot of us. I mean, the majority of the population around the country who are more condensed into these city spaces now.
Right.
And, space
And
is limited.
But
yet
get
the
more.
need for growing food or learning to grow your own food or understanding how to grow your own food couldn't be any more right now.
Any
Even
more
if you have, even if you are in these limited spaces, and that's why, you got to get out and you got to check out Kaye's channel. You got to come check out my channel. Several other people out there who do this small space gardening and optimizing these very limited spaces that we have in order to grow more food for ourselves, because that is really important. Stuff at the supermarket, it's there. It's okay. It looks great. But when you grow a tomato yourself, man, there's just nothing more amazing. When you grow something yourself, there's just nothing more amazing than having that sort of produce.
Do you remember when I mentioned about that? I think it was off air. I don't even remember. Everything's a blur for me already. I was talking about the Durs ban and how they took it off the market.
That was on
Right.
air.
That was on the air. All right. Here's something pretty interesting. It's only illegal in the United States
To do what?
to use Durs ban.
I see.
Every other country in the world sprays heavily with Durs ban. And their idea of around the world, their idea of organic and our idea of organic is two different things.
Right.
So if you think for a second that when it says it comes from Ecuador and it says organic on there, it's their version of organic, not our version.
Right.
Well, when you say
That's
we, the USDA has a version of organic, and
Yeah.
then we have a version of
Well,
organic.
yeah. Oh, well, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. But I have a cousin of mine. I have in fact, if you go into the Central Valley, half of the Central Valley is owned by relatives of mine, and they're farmers, and most of them are grapes, vineyards, growing raisins. And I bumped into one of my cousins not long ago, and he told me, he said the absolute best thing that he ever did was become a certified organic farmer.
Wonderful.
Because it actually lessened his liability. He's making more money because of that. His insurance is lower. His fruit crops are bigger. Yes, he has other problems that crop up, but they weren't as horrible and as hard as it was when he was actually doing chemical
Once you
gardening.
create that balance, it just works great
Creating
after
the
that.
balance, yeah.
Yep,
It's really
you gotta work into
good to
it.
hear stories like that.
Yeah.
And it's encouraging to other people to do that.
Yeah, and he grew up. I mean, his grandfather and my grandfather were the same person, and they only knew how to do chemical gardening.
Well,
farming.
that's really what it is today with
Chemical
industrial
farming and chemical gardening is just so new.
Well, with industrial cattle agriculture, my son is a lifetime grazed cattle rancher in Minnesota and works for a Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed company, and that's where I was learning about infiltration. And if we could get back to that instead of putting all these animals in feedlots and then having to give them so many antibiotics because they're all grouped in together, and they're also given a lot of all these GMO crops and everything, and if they can just have a life on grass, the world would be a healthier place.
Okay, I'm gonna throw a monkey wrench in this whole conversation.
Oh,
Okay.
here you go again.
here we go.
Okay, this is something that I have fought for years, but I've decided to stop doing it. But if I ever bring it up, I bring it up only because it's like I wish people would get it. Did you know that that nearly everybody? First off, I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, so we're going to see if we get
Here we
kicked
go.
off of Facebook or not.
Uh-oh, we're in trouble.
Okay, what you guys know as GMOs are not GMOs. I can guarantee you that if we had an in-depth conversation of what GMOs are,
Right.
what you need to be worried about are GEs,
Yes, genetically engineered.
genetically engineered.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with the GMO. Absolutely nothing.
Genetically modified
Because
organism.
you and I, we're all GMOs.
Mm-hmm.
We're byproducts of our parents. Two different organisms that came together, but of the same type of organism, but different families came together. You get a GMO, genetically modified organisms.
Right.
But it's now, one of the biggest companies in the world is General Electric.
Mm-hmm.
What is their acronym?
GE.
So
Yeah.
wouldn't it behoove them to
To
tell
make sure you're-
everybody that nobody would say that GEs are bad?
Right.
I think it was brilliant on their part.
Right.
Now, that's just theory. I didn't say that it actually
But
happened.
then also those people who are concerned about GMOs are concerned about GEs.
They're concerned about GEs.
They just don't know the acronym.
Exactly. And that's just, I see things in the market. I see people, and they say,
There are certain things though.
What do you-
When it
GMOs
comes
are
to
horrible.
What do you
GMOs and
think
all
about?
that,
What do you?
I'll bring
sorry.
up one real quick though. When it comes to like GMOs, I think the one thing that gets me, and maybe I think is a little controversial, is, and do love a lot of different seed companies out there that do kind of do that, but is the idea of like non-GMO seeds. We're a non-GMO seed company. We're, all of these, and they're telling their consumers variety by variety, this is a non-GMO or GE, or however we're going to say that. But the idea out there that most people don't understand that they can't sell you those things, even if they could. You know what I mean? They're not. That you're not going to get packaged genetically modified seeds. Those things are bought by large scale agriculture. They're bought in big, huge bags. They go into these big, massive machines that go on these fields and all that sort of stuff. They don't individually package them.
Right.
You know what I mean? They don't individually package them for consumers.
Well, that's a very good point, and I don't think a lot of people think about that.
And you'll
That's right.
see this everywhere. Is non-GMO, and here's another real big problem though, is that you'll see say red lettuce, and it's got this blue packet over here, and then you see the red lettuce over here, and it's got a green packet. It says non-GMO. It's 20-30 cents more expensive. It's got different packaging. It's the same seed, and people don't understand that. That's the same seed.
Oh, you got to love America. That's a beautiful thing.
I mean, there are only
Okay.
really a couple of those types of crops grown in America anyways.
That's
so,
right. That's right.
and,
All right. How about this? This
and they're meant, actually, those crops are meant for places around the world mostly, though, that have nutritional problems. They have or lack of those sort of crops. They don't grow well there, and that's what they're doing. They're setting those things to grow in these places where they can try to bring down famines.
Well, they're
and things
hybridizing them for those things, and hybridization is not a GE.
Right.
What a GE is when you take corn, and this is a real thing in the United States. When you take corn and you take you take this table.
Mm-hmm.
And you put the table inside of the corn.
Yep.
Or you take some type of solution that was man-made, and you put it to make a super corn.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what they're
genetically
doing.
engineered.
That's
is
what they're
the
doing with
chemical-
GE salmon now.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah.
Did you
Yeah,
read
exactly.
that about the GE salmon
Yeah,
last week?
I did.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it's pretty crazy what's going on out there. Well, we're
It
not
is.
going to be able to change the world. We're having a lot of fun doing it.
That's right.
Did you get your answer for your smoke and your plants?
I think we pretty much got that
Yeah,
covered.
it's just-
Wash them.
Give them a
It's
shower.
just washing them off.
One other thing, though, I did want to mention, though, here, real quick on that line, though, also that I didn't say, is I had someone respond to me when I did a video about the smoke and kind of touched on this subject. Someone responded in my comments saying, "Do you think it could be the bees?"
Oh, Yeah.
Because when you think about bees and beehives, and you see someone who cares and takes for a beehive, when they want to clear the beehive out, they smoke it.
Yeah, they do.
And they smoke out the beehive. They clear it out. They can get in there and get it all taken out. Bees go off, and it settles them down. Is what it kind of does, I guess.
Yeah.
And so if you imagine you've got a layer of smoke sitting all over the valley like I have, and you've got a bunch of bees that are flying around in this smoke.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Flying around in this smoke.
Your point
are they
is,
flying around in a daze and
your
not
point
doing
is
their
that-
job?
Okay, I see what you mean.
Okay.
And their job is pollinating.
What do you think about that?
I wasn't sure where he was going, but now I get it.
Okay.
Now
Yeah. Okay, here's my thoughts on something like that. Bees aren't the only ones that pollinate. Flies pollinate, spiders pollinate. There's a lot of other insects that are pollinating. So would they be slowed down? Possibly. Would they be in a daze? Possibly. Would it kill them? Possibly. But there are other insects that are around that do that. Now, the other thing is this. When did the fires create their havoc for the gardens based on when the flowering for those gardens was going on? So where most of our crops, springtime is when you're going to see the flowers, and that's when very early summer,
Right.
that's when you're going to have the pollination going on, the most activity going on.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
we normally don't have fires in those
no,
areas.
the fall is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we usually have the fires when it's summertime, late
Right.
fall like this right now. That's when we have it. We don't have anything that's being pollinated. So I don't think it's an issue.
Right.
But so I think it's just more of a problem of open up those tomatoes.
Yep.
I
and
mean,
washing the
loquat
plant down.
tree I bought yesterday, I looked at the leaves and there was just like a coating, and I said, "Wow, is this just the ash from the fires? Because they're pretty far."
Yeah. Yeah,
And
and it
she
probably
said,
is.
Yeah, she said the whole nursery is
Yeah,
just
in my
covered.
episode I did with the smoke, I went and did a real close up of a leaf, and you can just see all of those particulates
Yeah.
just piled up and
yeah.
piled up on each other all across that leaf, So,
So important to wash, but you have to be careful because if you wash them off too much, you're gonna have the problem she constantly is battling, and that's the mildew.
Right. And the
Yeah.
only reason I did it is because we did have the warm air. So there was a warm. I did it at night,
Yeah,
and there was a warm breeze, and I figured that they would dry.
I can help you with your mildew.
Oh,
I can help you with it. It's not gonna solve it 100%, but I can help you with it.
you're gonna be my best friend.
Okay, here's the story on mildew. Mildew is a fungus. It's very difficult to kill a fungus. We never say we kill a fungus. We say we control the fungus.
Or suppress.
In your part of the world, because you're by the coast, the way that we do this is that we throw every traditional thought of gardening out the window, and that is, mildew is a byproduct or a product that is encouraged by dew. So because you're by the coast, you have a lot of dew on your plants. The dew settles on your plants early in the morning. So if you were to take and you were to wash your plants off, which most plants, they really don't want, vegetables we're talking, most vegetables, they don't want their leaves washed. They hate that. But we have to do it once in a while, especially if there's fires.
Yeah.
And if there's dew, you can lessen the mildew problem by washing off the dew off of the plant before it has a chance for the sun to burn it off. What you'll do is that you'll be washing the plant. The water droplets will actually grab the fungus, i.e. the mildew, and it'll grab it and it'll throw it to the ground and it'll kill it. That's when you could say it killed, because there's nothing for it to feed on any longer. And if it doesn't, the worst that happens is that it brings it together and you have little mildew spots instead of the whole plant.
Early morning mildew watering.
It's a
washing.
lot of work to do that.
It's a lot
Yeah.
of work.
It's
Yeah.
a lot of work.
Yeah.
But if
So-
you're dealing with a lot of
Well, I'm
problems and
If-
destruction
I'm,
or
wi-
anything
I'm
with it,
dealing with
Yeah.
something even more irascible, and that is I've sort of by deduction have decided that I have bacterial spot on my peppers
Okay.
because I planted 40 peppers this year. I used all new pots, all new soil, new seeds, and because I have 2 or 3 that are in the ground still from leftover from last year, every single plant got it to a more or lesser degree.
Yeah.
The leaves turn yellow, they get spots, they drop off.
Well, the spores are light enough to travel with wind.
Oh, yes, I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's just
I got a solution for that, too.
get rid of every pepper.
Stop growing peppers!
Hey, no, that's not a solution. That is not a solution.
Oh, that's right. We have Pepper Boy over here. He's getting thrown out of his house because he's growing peppers.
I
love peppers.
I grow 40 pepper plants every year, and you're telling me to
You
stop
mentioned the
growing peppers.
hibiscus and the way you talked about hibiscus and the varieties and all the cool this and that. And the whole thing I'm sitting there thinking about is,
Peppers.
that's what I love about peppers.
Well, me too.
I went to...
Just the varieties,
And
the
tomatoes.
needs, the pods, the way the plants
Tomatoes,
grow.
it's
They're all
mildew,
different.
and
They're
peppers,
just
it's the bacterial spot.
I went to Disney World one time, and I'm walking through, and all of a sudden, I hit a wall, and my eyes start watering. My nose was titillated with the smell. They had an area that was as big as a city block within Disneyland. You know, they're fancy and all that, and Disney World, and it was all peppers.
Oh man.
Every different variety of pepper you could imagine. It was the most beautiful display because they don't do anything cheap.
When peppers are beautiful,
Oh.
my, they're healthy, they're so beautiful. The peppers
It
in
was
Phoenix are
cool.
incredible. They look so gorgeous. Not a spot. They're perfect. If I could grow peppers like that, I'd be so happy.
Well, you'd have to move to Phoenix, obviously.
By the way, they want me to. The county extension office, is that back to that? Is that a good place to maybe take some of my samples and try to determine scientifically what this problem is? Because I've just been trying to.
You know what?
Is that
You know,
helpful?
I would say we're anywhere else but over here because I'm not a big fan. Orange
Okay.
County has a really good county extension office.
Oh, okay.
But that would be the place you would go for
Technically-
anybody else out there.
technically,
You go to
it
your
would be-
extension to find
It
out
would be
those sort of
easier.
things
Let's
for your
put it this
localized
way.
issues.
Let's put it this way. The county extension offices are they actually focus more on agriculture. Okay, even though our crops are ag based, they don't like the idea of you bringing any kind of problems to their place. One of the best things that ever happened to me is the internet because people send pictures now. Where before people used to mail me all kinds of diseased insects and lawns and not diseased insects but diseased plants. So
Can you identify from a photo?
You got to take a
Pretty-
good photo.
It's-
Here's the thing. I
you're
see
right.
people out there who ask questions, and they're asking some
the
people
photos
that know
are
that,
terrible.
and they take the worst picture to
Right.
try to show what they're trying to
can
say.
take
This
good
is.
pictures,
Can you
but
see what's wrong with my plant? It's like, well, no. Can you look up on maybe
yeah.
I just thought you have to put it under the microscope.
It's hard. No, you don't have to put it under a microscope. Most problems can be detected by the eye. Only the very rare and odd things, and that's normally not a problem. You're still okay if you take it and you basically hermetically seal it. Put it in a baggie that has the double thing. Close it up, double thing. Take it to a nursery. Do not open it up at the nursery, and show them this is what it is. The people who work at nursery, especially if it's a Ma Pa Kettle nursery, you go
Especially what?
if it's a Ma Pa Kettle nursery.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, these chain nurseries,
Family-owned
most of
type of
them,
thing.
they just don't have the help. They're good people, they just don't have the help and the knowledge. Go to a Ma Pa Kettle nursery, and those are the ones who really have a pulse on what's going on because they see it every day.
Yeah.
And their livelihood is based on how do I help my people solve this problem.
Yeah.
So that's where I would go first, and then I'd probably go to the chain stores, not chain stores, but the chain nurseries. Every so often you'll find some pretty good people in there, and then I would go to the ag department after that, county extension office. We were talking earlier about master gardeners, and the master gardeners technically do not hang around over there. They might do volunteer work for there, but they're really not that equipped to handle the really hardcore.
Well, when I was interviewing the agent in Kentucky,
Oh, those guys are awesome.
Yeah, they're with the University of Kentucky,
Yeah.
and they have the whole science department looking at problems and stuff. So,
Well, which is
and they're
which is a
trying to-
really another good point.
Yeah.
You could go to Cal Poly Pomona.
oh,
Yeah, take your stuff down there. Take your pictures or take your thing. They have the best ornamental horticulture one over here. If you're into viticulture, you go to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo.
well, this is peppers. So I
Okay,
don't know.
UC Riverside has an awesome turf grass one over there. And most of your UC schools
Yeah.
will have some type of ag program, and hit up the colleges.
Yeah.
You hit any,
Oh,
all
I
of your
know I'm going
colleges
to
have
look
some.
at-
some
I'm going
kind
to
of ag.
look at something at University of Southern California. They have like a what is it, Tower Gardens thing that they're doing out of there, growing, just utilizing space in Santa Cruz, but they grow it for their own cafeterias and
Yeah,
their own thing there.
Yeah.
They have a whole department, for growing and doing that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
it's really cool.
Okay, what's that program with the Big Bang Theory? Okay, Big Bang Theory. They're always at what college? What do they teach at?
I don't know. It's my son's favorite show, and
Oh yeah.
Oh, come on!
Uh-oh.
I can't remember.
We're
the
not
name
getting
of
any
it.
help over here. I
Anyway,
guess.
it's located not far from here. It's in
Oh, right.
Pasadena.
Oh,
I've
really?
been there before, and they have their own little garden area where the science geeks get out there and they do their stuff. They're growing some pretty wild stuff.
Wow.
What really fascinated me is that they have so many olive trees, and I know you wanted to talk olives, didn't you earlier?
yes,
Oh.
fruit
So
fly.
yeah, so the olives that they grow over there, they get everybody over there when it's olive picking season time, and they have all the families and friends and relatives. They pick all of the olives and they make they send the olives out to get squeezed, and they make their own olive oil.
That's great.
Well, I did that. I was going to do that. We picked my olives this year. I had thousands of olives, and I wanted to get some of them pressed, but they have so many maggots in them
Oh,
from the olive fruit fly, and so that's where I was learning about this through the extension office. And but someone came and visited me, and she said it doesn't matter because if you're making olives, if you're brining olives, it doesn't matter because the maggot will come out during the brining process, and so you're not actually eating any of the maggots, and
Wow.
it doesn't affect the quality of the olive,
Hey.
except they're not very beautiful.
Well, yeah, huh?
I have some recycled water. You want a cup?
Recycled water.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or maggots over there.
Recycled water.
I brought some olives for you to try.
Yes.
All right, that's the extended version of what we wanted to do today. Thanks a lot, everybody, for joining
Thank
us.
you.
Bye-bye.
Take care, and thanks a lot for guys for stopping by. Okay, Pam, we're done. Are we going? All right. So Kay decided to go on a potty run, huh? Yeah, it's too late. It's already out.
Oh, busted.
All right. So we decided to do this again, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So let's let
Let's
people know that we're here.
All right.
Okay. So we're just kind of chatting right here, folks. You actually had a question, but we're not going to get the question until Kay gets back. All right.
Okay.
This is called the things. This is a Things Green Extra. That's what it is.
Everything's going so well. We get to do extras.
We get to do extras.
What?
Look at this. Okay, so we're going to share this. And we're going to go. Okay, so we're going to say Things Green Extra, period. Now, what we're going to do is capitalize that G because Things Green Extra, share now. All right, that works. How are you coming along with yours?
All right.
Okay, so we're going to also go like this. Oh, Enoch is what? Look at I say Enoch. Does everybody do that? You
They do
pronounce it
all
differently.
Enoch.
Enoch.
Yep.
Yeah,
More of a
what-
Nick than a knock.
Okay, you said that before. That is hey, look at Raymond joined us.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're going to share this again. Where am I going to? I'll share it to a group. We're going to go to gardening today. How's that? And go someplace else. Oh, these guys at Lawn Care World, they're hardcore. Lawn Life. That's nice. All right, we're just going to visit. That's all we're going to do. Actually, we're going to talk about something that pertains to the fires. So, hey, Raymond, why don't you do us a favor and share this, all right? Google, please share. Please share. Go like that. Enoch? Like Nick.
That sounds great. Like Nick.
Like Nick, but with an E in front of it.
Yeah.
Where'd you get a name like Enoch?
You're familiar with Nick, right?
Yeah. Where'd you get a name like that?
Well, it's more of an interesting personal story, actually.
It's a what story?
An interesting personal story, in a sense.
You're not going to break down in tears, are you?
No. Not quite one of those stories,
Because
but in a sense, there's a reason why, in some senses, some people get to a certain point in their life and understand certain things weren't meant to be, and that was my original name. So
Enoch was the original name? No, it's not.
Yes.
You changed your name?
Here's a secret
No
for everybody out there. This is
way.
the only place you're going to know this. I changed my own name.
Okay, so earlier, and I won't tell anybody, you mentioned your real name.
I did. And I did on accident, too.
Did you do that on accident?
I did, yes.
I had no
noticed
idea.
That, too. You noticed that.
I
That's
caught
right.
that, and I was going to say something
Talking about my
it.
grandmother.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But it wasn't on the air. You just said it while we were talking.
Right.
You said it real quick. I go, oh, wait a minute. That's not the guy that I thought that was here.
Like, did I just say that?
You did. That is too cool.
That's kind of
we're
funny.
We're not going to tell anybody what your real name is, but I just wanted to do that.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting. I thought, man, I got a guy who's schizophrenic in here. This is cool. Wait till he finds out that I go by Bob and Shirley.
Oh,